being able to understand who you are, exactly who you are. I think that their uh, obsession with being prepared is like crazy to watch, and it's really with a lot of guys on our team. It's just having a really clear understanding of.
Arteaga drives one to center. Miller hustling over. Diving catch by Ian Miller. A great catch.
3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Nine Hole Podcast. This is Ian Miller. I am joined by 2023 World Series winner and associate manager of the Texas Rangers, Will Venable. Will, what is going on, man? How you doing?
Doing great, Ian. Thanks for having me, bro. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you, man. How is life as a World Series champion? What's going on?
Well, we had a good run there, and it was a couple days of celebrating. We had a day there in Arizona after we won, a little bit of partying. We came back, had the parade in Texas. And then once that was over, man, I'm back at home, making lunches for the girls and driving them to school and straight into dad mode, man. So the celebration was great, but short lived, man. Just back on the grind.
I love that. So have you been able to kind of unpack and get a reality check? Has it hit you that this is kind of where you're at right now? Have you started thinking about moving forward, or are you still kind of relaxing, right? The off season's kind of early still.
Yeah, we've really just jumped right back into it. Nothing really stops. We still have next year to plan for. Already getting hit up for spring training scheduling stuff, and just trying to, like make sure that our guys, in an unorthodox offseason where they didn't get a lot of rest, like, are they doing the right things? Do they have everything that they need? We still have guys who are getting healthy and working on stuff. So it hasn't been like a everyday like heavy load, but definitely starting to have baseball conversations and talking to players and coaches and front office people, and just kind of how we're going to approach next year.
Fires me up, man. That makes a lot of sense. Man, I wanted to just kind of run through, your resume, what you've been able to accomplish throughout your coaching career, the front office, when you got an experience there, man, and your playing career. Obviously, this is the Nine Hole Podcast, right? So you have kind of an unconventional story, man. You had the underdog mindset, right? I was under you in Chicago, right? You were the third base coach. You worked with the outfielders in Chicago. I was fortunate enough, man, to be around you. So I'd love to just tie it all into, the never say die attitude, man, and just run you through some questions if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. Right. So your first year, right, in Texas, man, you won a World Series. It is the first, World Series championship, man, for the organization. Before that, you're the bench coach for Alex Cora, right? You spent a year at the third base coach, right, with Rossi, and then 2018, 2019, man, first base coach for Joe Madden. Man, but before that, you have a little stint in the front office. I wanted to like specifically ask about that up front. Man, was that, before we get into the background of playing and stuff, was that something that's always kind of been in your mind that you wanted to experience, or was that something that just popped up all of a sudden?
Yeah, I think it kind of popped up a little more all of a sudden. I wasn't exactly sure when I was done playing what I wanted to do. And kind of I was advised to kind of, tap back into the industry on a really just open-minded kind of level. And so I reached out to some clubs and just let them know that I was interested in a special assistant role without really knowing what I wanted to do, just kind of an exploratory role. And if they were willing to, open the hood a little bit on what goes on in the organization, that I would be interested in, learning as much as possible, contributing, however I could, and ultimately like with the hopes that they could help me find what I was interested in. So that's kind of how it happened. Reached out to a bunch of clubs. The Cubs hit me up and said, "Yeah, we have that role for you," and they made it happen. So it was
It's
awesome.
fantastic. That's fantastic, man. I wanted to hit on that first, but obviously you were a player before that, man. You had a great career at Princeton, and you had a couple of years in the minor leagues, but before you found success in the big leagues, parts of 9 seasons. Man, I just wanted to hit on kind of your journey through high school, through college. how that started, man. Obviously, your dad, Max, was my hitting coach in high A, man. So I kind of saw how he went about his business. I can kind of imagine how you were raised in the game, man. But I was, reading and I've heard, man, you were a serious basketball player, and that was kind of the main focus coming up. Am I right?
Yeah, that was all I wanted to do. I wanted to play basketball. I would dream about being in the NBA. I would sleep with my basketball. I mean, I was like full on obsessed with basketball. But like you said, my dad Max was a baseball guy. He played in the big leagues. He was a coach, and so that was always kind of there, but not something that I really like even tapped into. I mean, when he was coaching in the minor leagues and then took a break while I was going through high school. And he would help out with the baseball team in high school. And, we'd make plans to go hit early, and I'd have to walk by the gym to get to the batting cage, and I'd just blow him off and stop and get some shots up. It was just not anything that I was really thinking about or like really tapping into, which was kind of crazy. Now I think about it here. I have this amazing father who was a great coach, and I really didn't, bother to ask him anything about baseball. Just wasn't really into it. And so then once I got to college, man, and Princeton was, I was fortunate enough that Princeton was going to let me play two sports at school. And at that point, as I got going with my athletic career, graduations coming around the corner, kind of had to make that choice of like, hey, what path are you going to go down to? And at that point, it was pretty clear, I wasn't going to be in the NBA, and overseas was a possibility, but I didn't know what my ceiling was in baseball, so I was like, dude, let's give it a shot and go for it.
I love that. I love that. Do you attribute any of your success or development maybe to playing two sports, being dominant in more than one sport, kind of broadening your horizon? Did that play any type of, did that play into the success, you think?
Oh, I think for sure. I mean, and I don't think I realized it until later in my career, but how I survived as a baseball player was my athleticism. And so playing basketball, understanding how to use my body in different ways, and then going right over to the baseball field. Like I was moving well on the field. I was as fine tuned an athlete as I've been coming off the basketball court, and that helped me a ton in kind of impacting a baseball field and like just understanding who I am and how I was going to survive.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense, man. So, you had a good sophomore year that ended up being your first year in baseball, right? You just kind of focused on school and basketball your freshman year, from what I was reading, right? And then you had a good sophomore year, had a good junior year, got drafted, but came back, got drafted after your senior year.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. And then, man, you ended up making your MLB debut when you're 25. Got ended up over 700 hits, man. 81 home runs, 135 stolen bags. That's insane. Fantastic career. And then, as I alluded to earlier, for whatever out of place, man, you had the front office experience. You had the assistant to the GM or the assistant, to Theo experience. Man, so you kind of you've got it all, right? You've experienced it all, man. Overall, how has the journey been like for you up until this point? Obviously, it's been a little unconventional. People aren't thrust into the situation and spotlight you're in, man. What has it been overall for you so far?
Oh gosh, I mean, really just fortunate, I mean, you know how hard it is to make it to the big leagues and to be able to grind out some time there, and then really use that experience to leverage kind of my post playing career. I thought about kind of going in the financial route and helping some players out with their financial stuff, and then just realizing, man, like I know baseball, like this is what I do, and to stay kind of like in that circle was huge. So. Um, I really attribute it all to having played, and everything now that I'm experiencing, is I think because of that, it opened up a lot of doors. So I just feel very fortunate. There's just been a lot of lessons along the way, a lot of things that have helped me grow as as a professional, but also a person. And certainly, as it starts with just grinding on those buses in the minor leagues, man, and really having to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself if this is what you want to do, and go to some crazy places. But I think you learned something. I was fortunate that it ended up working out, and now it's still paying off for me.
Love that. So obviously, man, I was going to ask you what's been the biggest, standout moment of your career, any type of career. Obviously, you're just coming fresh off of a World Series, win. Man, what's been the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome or experience throughout the entirety of your career, any point in time?
I think you know how hard this game is, and it really throws things at you nonstop. And I think just thinking about getting to the big leagues and how special that was, and that's just kind of like a benchmark for all of us baseball players. That like, man, you say like you made it, but it wasn't like super easy to establish myself. And I think that as I got going, and having to go down to the minor leagues and kind of sort some things out. And I think like those moments where you're reflecting and kind of getting an understanding of what it is you need to do better, how you can improve, not just as a player but as a person. I think that those are those are the biggest challenges, the things that I learned the most from, that I continue to carry with me, is when things just didn't go right. And we also know that in baseball that just never stops. So it's just kind of been one lesson after the other as the game beats you down like it does.
For sure, for sure. So obviously, you go through these ups and downs, speed bumps, whatever it is, man. Throughout the entirety of your career, whether you're playing every day, you're coming off the bench, you have to stay mentally locked in. You might go through some ruts or some slumps, right? Like, man, I get it. Was there anything that you did specifically that helped you kind of stay fresh, got out of a funk, got out of a tough spot, man, mentally, where you were just kind of like lacking confidence, whatever it was? Was there anything that like specifically helped you?
Probably more after my playing career, I got into mindfulness a lot and just spending time meditating and being still and quiet. Really around that COVID season or with the Cubs, that summer was when I probably got the deepest into it, and uh, that really just kind of helped me, kind of categorize these issues in a different way. Just kind of take lessons or take tough challenges for what they are, and learn something from it. And move on, as opposed to maybe earlier in my career where you sit and you stew and stuff a little bit, don't have the tools to kind of move on and extract the lessons from those experiences. So that's one thing I wish I did as a player. I don't think that we really understood when I was playing, just kind of the mental skills component of kind of your tool chest and having something in that toolbox to help you through things. So that's something that's helped me post playing career, but I was kind of on my own when I was playing, man. And, I don't think I did a very good job of dealing with some of that stuff most of the time.
I get it. I really didn't learn anything about it until, I'm 25, 26, 27, and by then I'm already 5 years deep in the minor leagues, 6 years deep, whatever it is. And it's a whole new process kind of to learn, right? When you have analytics, you have all these numbers, right? That's a whole new type of way to kind of process information, man. So this mindfulness, meditation, all that stuff, kind of quieting the mind, getting present, that's huge. Are you guys, is your team, or the Texas Rangers, are you guys, practicers of that? Are you guys working mindfulness? Are you guys working with mindset coaches? How do you guys do that?
Yeah, I would say that what's unique about our group is that we have guys that take a ton of ownership over their craft, and the way that they want to practice, and they're given the autonomy um, to do whatever it is that they think that they need to do to prepare and be the best versions of themselves. And our job is just really to support that, So whether it's with the mental skills coach, or whatever resources we can provide for them, just so they have the things that they need, and whether they decide that those things are important for them or not, or we're left up to it's left up to them. But yeah, it's absolutely something that's a resource that's in the building that if these guys want to take advantage of it, they can.
Love it, man. Looking back on when I was playing, I was a certain type of player, man. You knew what type of player I was. I was, a defensive replacement, maybe base running type extraordinaire, right? Use my legs to try to do whatever I could to score a run or prevent a run, whatever it was. Um, Man, looking back on it, I wish I kind of understood and broke down and dove into the numbers a little bit more, especially with, the swing and the way that, the way that certain teams have access to information and can, break it down scientifically, mathematically, whatever it is. Obviously, that's a wealth of knowledge that is just open to you if you can stomach it, if you can dissect it, if you can buy in. That's something that I honestly wish I took a little bit more serious, and that's something that kind of like flew over my head as my career kind of wound down. Knowing what you know now, going through everything you've been through, being in the front office, being a third base coach, first base coach, bench coach, so associate manager, man, just World Series champion. Like, if everything that you know now, if you can go back and change anything in your career, what would you change and why?
Um, that's a good question. And my first thought is, maybe more simple when after you lay out all those things, maybe you should have a better answer for this. But I would have just gotten on the velo machine more, man. You
Really?
know? Yeah. Like, I hated hitting off the machine because I wasn't good at it. And so I'd never like figured out just how to like simplify my move to fit into different like timing windows. And so like I always had like, a load that I wasn't confident in. Guys quick to the plate, I'm screwed if he slows things down. You know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
I was very much a victim of like the pitcher's timing and how he could mess with it. When I watch some of these guys like train on the velo machine, and all of a sudden like they're figuring out how to like fit their move into like really like erratic and short timing windows, right? And they're getting on top of velocity, and I just struggled with all that, and so I think that there's probably like some other things that I could break down as far as like why I didn't trust that myself on the inner part of the plate, and just kind of where my strengths were and like understanding those more. Like, yeah, sure, but like just the way that I trained specifically, doing more on the velo machine was kind of the first thing that comes to my mind.
Love that. Love that. Were you big in practicing a certain way? So obviously, like, you develop talent over X amount of time, over X amount of reps, and you try to solidify a certain move or a certain mechanic, whatever it is, and you want to perfect it or get it as near perfection as possible. Um, Man, did you train a certain way? Like, did you train to fail? So like, you bumped up the velo a little bit more, hit off the machine more. Did you train difficult, or were you more like a touch and feel guy? You want to feel good in the off season, man. How were you when you prepared?
Yeah, like I was a compete and like train till you fail guy, except for hitting. So like defensively, put myself into some really tough spots, worked extremely hard. To the point where, like if you're in spring training and you're making a mistake, I'm like, good, like let me get that out of the way. Like that's why I know I'm like doing things right. But with hitting, I just played it safe, I think. So, two answers to your question there. Hitting wise, like I was like clean and like keep it simple, and I don't want to embarrass myself, and like probably didn't get anything out of it. Where defensively and base running, like I pushed it and was comfortable making mistakes.
Love that. I feel like I resonate with that. I almost feel like that's the way that not I went about my business, but that's probably something that I could have done a little different too. Like, challenge myself a little bit more. Obviously, understanding the numbers and stuff is one thing, but kind of the way you went about testing the boundaries and your limits, maybe in the cage or off the machine, man. I feel like I resonate with that a little bit, man. That's crazy.
You went pretty hard though, didn't you?
I did, man, but like, my hard maybe wasn't as quality as somebody else. You know what I mean? Whereas I feel like I needed to put in more reps. Man, I was just like an average dude that could run fast, right? But like, at some point you get to double A, whatever it is, it's like, man, you don't get the ball out of the infield. That's tough, dude, because that little dribbler to the shortstop is, you're gone.
Yeah.
You're gone. That's not bang bang. Like, you just beat it out. You're running a sub 4 or whatever it is. It's, man, those are out. So obviously there's like a differentiator at some point, man. But so, touching on that experience again, man, you have coaching experience, managerial. So bench coach, all this stuff. You played the big leagues, man. You had a crazy story, front office. Like, if you had any type of advice to a player grinding through the minor leagues, man, or wanting to take that step, maybe they're in college, they're looking to get drafted, or they're a high school player looking to further their career, play D1, hopefully, whatever the dream is, and then make it, to the big leagues. Like, man, what kind of advice can you throw their way?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, like for the younger group, further away from the big leagues, I think it's about just being really clear on like your love for the game, um, because it's going to get tested. The higher levels you go, things aren't going to always be great. Like, I think what you love about the game like carries you a long ways, and I think that would be super important. And probably never stops for any of those types of players. And then I would say, like, for guys in college and getting into the pro ball, like, really like accurately self-identifying like who you are as a player, I think goes a long way. I mean, we're just having conversations about our training stuff. Like, if we had better understanding of who we are, that would like change our mindset. It would change like our training habits, like how we evaluate our performance. Like, if you're really clearly a speed guy who gets on base and plays great defense, like when the game's over, you're not sitting there counting how many home runs you have, right? And like how many total bases, right? Like you're evaluating yourself on the right things, which I think is important. And we see a ton of guys that get to the big leagues and they don't understand who they are, right? Like, they've been hitting third their whole minor league career. We haven't given them the tools that they need to be an 8-hole hitter in the big leagues, right? So I think that's huge. And then also, like, you're just not that far away, right? Like, if you're in the
Mhm.
minor leagues, like, I think you can feel like really far away, and that's a tough thing to kind of um, carry with you every day through the grind. But the truth is, you're not far away at all. I think that's a good reminder for those young players grinding in the minor leagues.
That's big time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. One call away. Obviously, you hear it uh, year after year. The closer you get, man, you feel like it's an eternity away, man. But that I guess that is the reality of the situation. I'm going to bring up somebody here in a little bit who was in Double A to start the year last year, right, and ended up having a huge impact for you guys in the postseason, which is incredible, right? The one call away thing. But I wanted to hit on something that you just said, kind of identifying yourself as a player. This was something that took me swallowing my pride to kind of buy into. Right, I'm a little fast speed guy. I want to hit home runs, man. I want to
Uh-huh.
hit 30 pumps. Like, I want to be that dude.
Uh-huh.
Right, I want to be a bad boy. Right, but
Uh-huh.
I'm not. I'm not. So having to buy into who I was something that I feel like I struggled with. Speaking of that, there's Travis Jankowski.
Mhm.
Travis Jankowski, I obviously, like, that dude can fly. The dude can play insane defense, and that's somebody that I tried to emulate and look up to, with the way he plays, like the position he plays, how he goes about his business. Man, what is that like? Maybe having that, a weapon like that at the fingertips, man. Maybe in a late game, big game, big spot. Like, I mean, what does that mean for you? And, like, man, what does that mean, being able to buy into the type of player you are?
Yeah, that's a great example. Like, I mean, I don't know if there's a better example than Jankowski, as far as just a guy who like understands exactly who he is. And I think, like, if you ask these guys, like, like, why are you a good major league player? Like, my guess is that he could like tell you it's because he controls his zone, is an elite base runner, and plays great defense, right? Like, and he could probably break it down another level, but like those things are on the top of his brain because that's who he is and that's how he like carries himself on a daily basis. And when you have that, um, it's really special. Now, he just happens to be a kind of like complementary type player, which it helps even more. But like Corey Seager and Marcus Simeon have that same accuracy with the way that they've identified themselves. They're just in there every day, and Travis isn't. So it kind of like um, it opens up a different opportunity for him to like understand how he's going to impact a game. Right? He might be coming off the bench. He might be starting that day, and but he knows that where he's at in the order, it's going to be important for him to turn the lineup over for Simeon and Seager, or if he's coming in that day, he knows that our DH might need a pinch hit in the seventh inning, and he's prepared for that. So having somebody who just has an understanding of who they are, like it's a coach's dream, because we know what we're going to work on. We know he's motivated to work on those things, but he's always ready. He never complains. He's always willing to do what he needs to do for the boys. And I think it starts with just understanding like who he is and how he's going to impact the game and the team.
It's huge. So you mentioned just right there, alongside of Jankowski with the work ethic and the mindset, man. Simeon and Seager, right? Some absolute studs, and household names right now, world champions, man. So you are around the best baseball players in the world, man. What separates the good from the great, and what makes these guys so elite? Compared to their competition, just being around everybody, being around that type of elite talent.
Yeah, obviously, just like we mentioned, just being able to understand who you are, exactly who you are. I think that their uh, obsession with being prepared is like crazy to watch, and it's really with a lot of guys on our team. It's just having a really clear understanding of what it takes to be ready and locked in, and their commitment on a daily basis to get there, and really
Routines.
do it. Yeah, their routines. The way that they prepare. I'll tell you another thing too is like, I mean, because a lot of people work hard, and I think less people work in the right way. But I think what really separates these guys is kind of just their objective review of their performance, where they can having a bat, get the iPad, and they're not spending time looking at like how the umpire missed a call. It's like, all right, what happened in this bat that I can control, that I can improve on for the next time, so I can be a little bit better next time. And that's what they sit and they grind and they do it and they move on. So you're getting like a person who understands who they are, works extremely hard to be prepared every day and be at their best, but then is like really fair in how they evaluate their performance and getting the most out of that process to then like rinse and repeat. Um, and that's why I think like these guys just like keep getting better, and like I don't know, dude, it's crazy. I didn't have that mechanism in me, but these guys, it's all the same thing. Like they're not like wasting time on things that don't help them be great.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. Man, so this year, 2023, right? Your first year with the team. Obviously won a World Series, man. What was that overall experience like? What was the environment like?
It was awesome. I think that's one of Boch's strengths is just kind of the environment that he creates for the guys and for the staff, where everyone feels really excited to come to work every day, feel confident that they can do their thing. For the staff, it's like it's great that he's so inclusive. You come empowered to voice your opinion, and like most importantly, like there's just really high expectations for performance and work, and winning, really. So you combine all those things with just really good people, and we had a lot of fun, man. I mean, it was. Um, Obviously, like the winning part was great, but there was a lot of rough patches there leading up to that, and having the kind of guys we have, like those were fun too. They weren't easy, but we had fun finding solutions together. And it all starts with Boch and Chris Young, the GM. Like these guys just have created an amazing environment where people are trying to perform at a really high level.
Love it. Love it, man. So talking about that high level, obviously you've been around some of the best players that have played the game of baseball. Coaching, man, you've been with and coached for some of the best, I mean, biggest names in baseball. Historic success some of these guys have had. Joe Madden, right? David Ross, Alex Cora, Bruce Bochy. Man, what? How are they able to lead a team like they do? I mean, what is that like? Obviously, I've never been a head coach, I've never been a manager. I don't really know everything that goes into it. I know that, the leadership has to be insane in order to have everybody's respect. The track record's huge. Like, man, what do these guys do different that you've seen from other people that just don't have, storied success, coaching in the big leagues?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, they're all really different, but I think that they all do a couple things the same. I mean, they all like really brilliant baseball minds. They know the game. They know just the strategy of the game. They know like when they're watching a pitcher that when his stuff doesn't quite look right. You know what I mean? They just have an eye for the game and can see the game in incredible ways. Um, and I think the other thing that they all do really well is they connect with players. I think that they all have an understanding, even though they all have different playing backgrounds. They all have an understanding of like how challenging it is to be a player, and like put the players first in everything that they do. Whether it's a practice schedule, how they tell guys about the lineup. Just they're just thoughtful about the players, which I think is huge too. And yeah, and then everything else in between, man. I mean, these guys are so different. Their communication styles are different. Their responses to failure, to adversity is different. That they are very different. But I would say that those two things, their understanding of the game and their ability to communicate and connect with players is what sets them apart.
Love it. So this was your first year as associate manager, right? That's a little different, man. Obviously, the verbiage is different in college, right? They got head coaches and assistant coaches. Man, what are the differences between what you are doing and being a manager, right? Obviously, that might sound a little ignorant. That is a sincere question. Like I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah, no, an associate manager. I mean, it's a little bit of a made up title to steal me over to the Rangers, but I'm essentially a bench coach. Just kind of more of the traditional bench coaching role, um, which we also do have a bench coach on our staff, but his role is a little untraditional too. Um, but anyway, so Boch as the manager, he's still making all the decisions. I'm supporting him however I can, whether that's information before the game, in the game, helping him just get things dialed in how he wants, making sure that our staff and our players have what they need in Boch's light, and to make sure that he's got a pulse on what's going on. I mean, he can't be everywhere at once, and so I try and be his eyes and ears where he can't be. But yeah, it's really just a traditional bench coaching role is probably the best way to describe it.
Love it. So I have obviously an idea of what that means, man, and kind of what the maybe what the job entails, right? So you have a lot more hands-on stuff, maybe some more relational type stuff with the players. You might be telling them, hey, you're be ready to go in, this that all that stuff, right? So man, when it comes to late season moves, when it comes to chess matches and kind of playing strategic, I wanted to bring up Evan Carter, right? So we talked a little bit earlier about, he started in the minor leagues, right? Went up, I think, in September for a couple games, AAA, and then ended up making a pretty, you know, insane impact to you guys in the run you made. Man, how does that process work, right? So you are a coach, you're the associate manager. Do you guys have any say in kind of the strings that are pulled, who's moving up? Obviously, like Evan was having a fantastic year, so it's not like it was maybe not preset, right? But do you have a say in that? Do you have hands in that, or is that kind of behind the scenes? Obviously, with your front office experience, is that more a front office thing, or does the coaching staff have any type of pull with that stuff?
Yeah, so I think there's different ways to look at it. First of all, from the coaching staff perspective, like a lot of our conversation or a lot of our input on something like that would be like just based on need, like, hey, here's what we need when we're in the seventh inning of this game and Boch it keeps asking for a certain type of player. Like we don't have it because we're a little short here, or, we need a left-handed hitting outfielder to start, or whatever it might be. Like our job is to just kind of like make sure that perspective is spoken up for. Now, who the general manager and Chris Young and the front office decide is the dude to do that, like that's their business, you know.
Yep.
Um, just because we don't get to see these guys play every day. We don't have a great understanding of what their current skill set is while they're down there. But we are involved in conversations saying, hey, like, do we think this guy could be ready? But ultimately, those decisions are the front offices.
Okay. No, that makes a ton of sense. So I mean, what I'm reading, like he was, pretty high draft pick in 2020. So a relatively, quick minor league stint to get to where he's at. So he's making a huge impact so young. I mean, that's incredible. Was there a certain way that like he prepared that maybe you saw different from other young guys that A, you've been around, or B, you've coached? Like how is he able to do that in that type of spot consistently, right, in the playoffs, man, but like under that type of pressure at that age?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I don't know. It was insane. Like I think about where I was when I was his age. I mean, it was probably like a junior in college getting beat up on an Ivy League baseball field. You know what I mean? Like here, this guy is in the World Series and having this amazing playoff run, and nothing seems to be like too big for him. Outfield wise, like this guy's just super intelligent. Having conversations with him about outfield play, it's like he's got 10 years of big league experience, and I have to raise my own level of conversation to talk to him on some of this stuff. And then just hitting wise, our hitting guy Donnie Ecker and his group, they do a really good job of just like presenting solutions to problems that guys could have, whether it's getting on top of fastballs or sitting on a pitch or just understanding like different shapes and stuff. And um, listening to Evan talk to Donnie and the hitting guys about some of those solutions, like you can tell like this guy is just really, really thoughtful guy. So it's not just a kid that's just got a ton of ability and is out there playing baseball. Like he's really bright, really thoughtful, and really calculated with everything he does.
Love it. Love it, man. That makes a ton of sense. And, obviously, his success isn't happening right by accident. I'm sure the preparation and the grinding that goes on behind the scenes, same with everybody. But man, I think a lot of kids maybe don't see that, right? I see nowadays, at least, working with kids, being around, younger players now, man, it's like, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I was able to separate myself from the pack and kind of who I was going up against just because of the work ethic. And man, I wasn't better than anybody else. I just like maybe obsessed a little longer doing some stuff and tried to fine tune some things. And, obviously like being able to run faster than other people played into it too, man. But obviously like the work ethic and like how you guys go about your business, man, I'm sure that is insane and top notch, man. It's something that has been a constant theme, with this show, with this podcast, man. That we've had ex professionals, current, Division I college coaches that are coming on here and saying like, "Hey, man, you want to come to the program or you want to play at the top level? Like, dude, you got to be able to work. You got to be able to fail. You know what I mean? I think like failure is another huge thing that the younger crowd, the younger players, just man haven't had to fail like at that level yet, right?
Yeah, no, that's a big one, man. I mean, like we were saying before, I mean, I wish I had learned how to fail a little bit better when I was playing. I'm positive I would have had a better career. And unfortunately, I didn't really figure it out till I was already done. But yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. So I have two more questions for you, man. Before we hop off of the success you've been able to accumulate just in the first year of being with the Rangers, man. There's obviously been reports that you were a candidate, for being a manager, being at the helm of other organizations, man. Obviously, you're staying put. I think I'm reading something right when you guys were in the World Series. You came out and said, "I'm staying." Right? I'm just here. Just I'm focusing one day at a time. I'm staying here. I'm where my feet are, man. Like, man, what made you want to be here long term? Obviously, we're saying long term, but like I'm just thinking long term picture, man. What made you want to just stay here, not focus on the outside noise for right now?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's like super flattering to get these opportunities to interview for some of these managerial jobs every year. I mean, it's awesome that I'm thought of and included in that process. Um, I think that after doing a bunch of them, a couple off seasons of doing these, and also kind of bouncing around from different organizations, like great organizations with great people, uh, I just realized that like everything that I'm about, as far as what I believe in the game, what I believe in being a teammate and competing, like all those things are aligned with Texas, and we have an amazing young core of players who are going to be really good for a really long time. And I just, as much as I appreciated the interest, I just never felt better about just being somewhere. And what else am I looking for if that's not enough, So roll aside, like I don't need to. I don't need to manage right now. I don't need to, I don't care what my role is. It's about the group of people and winning, and we got a good group that got a good chance to win.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love to hear that. It's a fantastic answer, man. So, Will, I got one more question for you. So, obviously, this is the Nine Hole podcast where we're speaking to the next generation of nine hole hitters, man, underdogs, like, whether they're undersized, underdeveloped, right? Yeah, man, I was scrawny and weak when I was coming up in high school, man. Just a little pipsqueak, man, late bloomer. Man, when you think about a nine hole hitter, what kind of traits and characteristics do you think of?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think we've talked about a lot of them, right? Like understanding who you are. But I think that like with the 9 hole type hitter, right? Like that's not enough, right? It's also like there's a selflessness, that like almost like that that's how you're gonna make it. Is that you being selfless, you doing these things that no one else wants to do. That's gonna be your path to staying and your path to impact. And I don't know. I just think that all those things are related. Whether it's that work ethic, that dealing with failure, accurately self-identifying like who you are. They all like seem to go together. Um, but I think they're all kind of the things that we've been talking about, and probably I don't know if one stands out more than the other, but all combined, you get that type of dude.
I love that. I love that. Will, thank you so much for your time, man, and coming on here, touching a little bit on your story, kind of how you came up, man. I was excited to tie everything in together and try to get these next wave of baseball players to kind of relate to your story, man, and see like, hey, there are unconventional ways to get to the top, right? Obviously, I wanted to hit on the World Series championship, man, but anything's possible. Kind of just wanted to display that through your story and kind of through your journey, man. So I really do appreciate you being on here, man, and I thank you for your time.
Of course, Ian. Great seeing you, man. Thanks for having me, bro.
Likewise, likewise. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning in. We will catch you next time here on the Nine Hole Podcast.